Today I'm going to show you how I made this multi-purpose crosscut sled. It's not just a normal 90-degree crosscut sled. I've incorporated this rail to lock down the T-tracks, make repeatable angle cuts. You can also use a T-track for your clamp downs. I've got a T-track and a stop block across the back for repeatable cuts. Many functions to this one, so have a look, let me know what you think. I'm using 3/4 inch plywood. I want my crosscut sled to be 24 inches by 24 inches. I've got a bigger table saw so I can accommodate 24 inches on the left side of the blade. Then I'm going to cut 2 pieces for my fence, 3 inches high. Then I'm going to cut this one extra piece. I'm playing with the idea of making kind of a little miter jig for this. I'm going to switch up my blade and put in my dado stack for the grooves for the T-track. I'm going to use a setup block for the height and depth, but I'm going to sneak up on it, make sure I don't go too deep or too wide. I want them to fit nice and snug. After I make my dado groove, I put my T-track in and dry fit it. I want to make sure it fits nice and snug and doesn't sit too high or too low. And once I get it right where I like it, I will cut the second one. I just kind of measured something that I thought looked somewhat even. No real science to where I'm putting these. I'm going to start getting my fence glued together. I just put a ton of glue on it, leave a couple spots bare on the edge so I can use CA glue. I find the CA glue really helps for clamping up. Things aren't sliding around, they stay nice and flush. So I just spread my glue around, a couple little dabs of CA, hold it for a few seconds, put my clamps on and wait for it to dry. I probably don't need this many clamps, but I've got them all sitting around not being used, so why not? I'm just going to hammer the clamps to it. One thing I would recommend is don't build your fence until you've got your stop block. I never got mine until after I had the fence built, and when I put it on there, I realized that there's about an inch gap at the bottom. So if I wanted to cut multiple pieces of, say, 1/2 inch or 3/4, the stop block wasn't going to be any good to me. So I just measure the height and the width of the T-track, and I'm going to notch out that fence so that the stop block sits a little closer to the top of the sled. So with the fence notched out, I'm going to try my stop block one more time. And I'm much happier with the results. It sits much closer to the top of the crosscut sled so I can cut much thinner pieces. So now all I have to do is screw it down to the fence. Now I'm going to secure my T-track to the base of the sled. I like to pre-sand the backs of the T-track. Don't know if it's necessary or not, just feels like roughing up a little bit would make the glue stick a little better. So I sand those, stick some glue down in the grooves, and add screws. Next, I'm going to secure my fence to the base. I'm only going to put a couple screws in this for now because I've got to make sure everything's square later. Later, I use the 5-cut method. I don't show this. I'm no expert in it, and I do it so few and far between that I have to keep Googling it every time I do it. So I just know that I'm going to put this on best I can and adjust it later. Next, I need to attach a runner. For this, I'm going to use my table saw fence to make sure everything stays nice and straight. I'm just going to slowly butt it over to the fence and then get ready to add my CA glue and screws. When I cut my runners, I measure best I can, but I usually cut a minimum 3 and then just dry fit them to make sure they don't wiggle side to side, but they're still not too hard to push. And I put some washers down in the grooves just to make them sit up a little proud of the table so that when I use this, it's not rubbing against the bottom as well. It's got a little airspace there. Then I put some CA glue on the runner and put the activator on the bottom of the crosscut sled and hold it down until it's nice and dry before adding screws. Once everything's secure, I just grab my flush saw and cut off the excess. So this next part, I don't think it's super necessary. I'm just kind of trying something new. I thought maybe I'd like a little guide there if I want to make an angle cut or make some angled half laps, might make things a little easier. So I took a piece of 1 inch to 1.5 inch plywood, kind of played with it to find out where I was going to move around, where I wanted to put my T-bolts. Then I cut some slots in it for the T-bolts. I used a Forstner bit just to make a little room for my jigsaw blade to get started. Like I said, this might be something I never use or rarely ever, but it really didn't cost me anything else other than a 1 inch piece of plywood to try. With everything together and all pieces cut, I give everything a rough sand, 120 or whatever's on my sander from the last project. Not too picky about this. And I've got a tiny little bit of shellac hanging around, so I'm going to put a coat on that. No real reason you don't have to do that, but I did. I'm going to put my miter block gauge thingy on, as well as my stop block. And then I'm going to put a nice coat of furniture paste on the bottom. I find this makes everything slide a lot easier. Just as I thought I was ready to do a test run, I realized I didn't account for the thickness of my dado blade. So I've got to put my crosscut sled in, put my dado stack in, and rip off the edge of that so it fits. Such a cotton-headed ninny muggin sometimes. It's really not a big deal. I just got to rip a new edge, put one more little coat of shellac on to finish it up. So to try this out, I'm just going to pick a random angle using these two pieces of wood I had laying around. I'm going to transfer a line, take that over to my crosscut sled, lock the miter in place, and groove it out. Once that's all notched out, I take it back, overlay it on the second piece, make the marks, back to the crosscut sled, and notch that one out. And there you go, a nice X-brace using half laps. These are great for small coffee tables or hallway benches, etc. And of course, most of the time you use this crosscut sled, it's going to be just to make repeatable 90-degree cuts. So I'm just going to grab a scrap piece of wood and use my stop block to see how quick I can get these 4 pieces cut. Well, there you have it. Your multifunctional crosscut sled. Let me know if you're going to use this for half laps or just repeatable cuts. Have a good one. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Please take a second and just hit that like and or subscribe button. It really makes a big difference for a small channel like mine. Have a good one.